So today I wanted to give you an update on this dwarf Fuji apple tree, or I'm sorry, it's a dwarf gala tree here. So this was planted a couple years ago, and as you noticed, quite a few apples here, but there's a couple different things going on here. So let me explain a couple to you. First and foremost, the middle branch here has broken off, and as you can see, the branches have died. Some of them have snapped off. And so, how did this occur? Well, this occurred because in the wintertime, as this tree was pretty fairly new and young, um, I would I would put a shrub jacket over it in the wintertime to keep it from freezing. Because what would happen is the newer branches, as they grew, in the wintertime, they would freeze up. It would rain, it would freeze at night, and then it would break the branches, which would damage them. Then, one of the bigger problems that I faced that I wasn't aware of at the time was when it was a windy evening at nighttime, um, the shrub jacket would sway too much and would snap off the smaller branches who couldn't support it. And so then I get a lot of these tips where they would just break off. And I realized that the shrub jacket was actually doing some harm too. Yes, it was protecting the cold weather, and when it would rain and freeze, it would keep the tree or a tree a little bit warmer and insulate it and protect it. But I realized that it may be doing some more harm. Now, some of these branches, as you can see, secondary branches, they've grown quite a bit, so they're stronger now. But my plan is for this next winter not to put a shrub jacket on there because what happens is it ends up just damaging the tree because of the wind factor. With the heavy winds that occur from time to time, it's not windy every single day or every single night, but it would be windy enough where the smaller branches that are trying to grow and thrive would snap off because of the shrub jacket. So my plan is this winter not to put the shrub jacket on and see what happens. Now, as you can see, I bagged up some of the fruit that's growing on here. Some of the problems I faced this year was I was out of town for a work trip up in Vancouver, Canada for over about a month and a half. And that caused me not to be able to bag the fruit that was just set. Now, typically what you want to do is when the fruit is about a dime size to about half an inch, you want to go ahead and start bagging the fruit, because what you don't want is the collared moths to grow on there. So they get onto the tiny seedling or the fruit, and then they plant their eggs, and then they start burrowing into the apples. And so even some of the bagged fruit here, you'll notice that they did not burrow through the opening here that I tied off with the string. But what happens is that the eggs were already planted, and then they burrow into here. So you can see the little spots here, right? It's not that they somehow got through some opening and started burrowing in there. What happened is the eggs were planted before I put the bags on there, and then they grew inside there. So as you can see, what I'll do going through here today is I'll go through here and start chopping off the tree apples that are growing that you can see are damaged, because they're probably invested inside with worms. And so I'll do that today, where I'll just, instead of sapping the strength of the fruit that I probably will not be able to salvage, I'll cut those off so all the nutrients and other things aren't going into growing the fruit that is basically have been lost. Now, in a perfect timing, combating being in and out of town, in and out of the country, and having time, what I'll have to do is I'll make it a point next year to be around when the fruit is setting, and after the flowering and the fruit is set, when the fruit is about a dime size to half an inch, I've got to get the bags on here. Now, in Thailand, they don't use the jewelry bags to tie off the fruit. What they do is a cheaper method, which is just taking sandwich bags and tie bands, which are very, very inexpensive there compared to trying to find jewelry bags. they'll go ahead and take a sandwich bag. Works just as well. You might think, hey, can I use a plastic bag that has no airflow? No, it's not a problem. It actually makes the fruit ripen a lot quicker. But either way, whether you use jewelry bags or plastic bags and tie bands, what you want to do is you want to make sure when the fruit is set and they're a dime sized, half an inch, that you go ahead and seal them. And then I talked to somebody at an orchard a couple weeks back about my situation, and he says, of course, in bigger fields, they'll go ahead and spray. But if you choose not to spray every couple weeks and after every single heavy rain, what you want to definitely do is to get those bags on there as soon as possible. Now, when you do that, he says that for people who have individual trees or very small, you know, number of trees that they have to manage, it's always suggested to take just a little scrub pad and water, in a little soapy water, and just kind of scrub or wipe down every fruit before you bag it and seal it, just because if the eggs are laid on there, they're going to go ahead and do what's happened here. And so what happened is the fruit got too big. The moths came through there and laid the eggs. And then, once I bagged them, that's why some of the fruit that are bagged has markings on there to show that basically that the bug eggs were already there. They hatched and they started burrowing into the apples. Now, I got lucky on quite a few apples that I didn't bother to bag, and they haven't been touched. And so they look beautiful, right? But the trouble that I faced, the two big issues with this tree, is the shrub jacket that I put on in the wintertime. So this next year, won't put the shrub jacket on there, and hope that even when we have freezing rain, excuse me, whenever we have the freezing rain, it's not going to damage the branches. But I think the shrub jacket did more damage, and so we'll try that method this year. And then the second thing is, next year, if I'm here in the late spring, the fruit has set, and they're about a dime size, I've got to go ahead and wipe them down first with a little bit of a cloth or a scrub pad. And I know it'll be really tiny, but what I want to do is just wipe them down in case there's any eggs already on there, or I could spray them, and then to wrap them really early so that way we don't have that problem. So that's a little bit of an update on the dwarf gala apple tree. Now the branch here, the tallest one here, is over 6 feet tall. It's probably getting closer to 6.5, 7 feet. Now this tree is actually supposed to grow somewhere between about 6 and 9 feet. And so it's not too far away from being at the full height of what it's going to be. Now it'll be bushier. I've lost some branches, like I said before. And so hopefully we can get it to prosper a little bit more. But that's an update on the dwarf gala apple tree.